Alright, what's going on? So I figured I would just kind of go over my transformation and kind of how things have changed over the years in terms of just physique, training style, mentality, etc., etc. So this is around 2006, I want to say, and this is when I was 12, I believe, just turning around 13. So I've always been really, really short compared to my friends and really skinny as well. And as I got older, I kind of grew out a little bit, but I stayed pretty skinny. I remember a lot of my mom's friends always saying, like, put some meat on his bones, blah, blah, blah. I've always been pretty active as a kid. We used to have a tree house, and I grew up more in the country, so there was always stuff outside to do or play with friends. So everything I pretty much ate, I would burn off, and I didn't have a huge appetite anyway. Always played sports, ran cross country, but was not very athletic, not very fast either. But I always liked just doing things, moving around, doing pull-ups, stuff like that. Growing up, I liked being a little bit more on the thin side just because I liked being toned. I kind of naturally had abs, but I just didn't really like how bony I was, I guess. Every time someone would put their hand on my shoulder, I always felt like it's got to be uncomfortable because you're just touching bone. So going to the beach, I always felt like, it's funny looking back because at the time I always thought I was so ripped and stuff, but just seeing this, it's like, dang, this kid looks so emaciated. Who was I? As you can see, like at the beach, always trying to flex and look like a tool. So yeah, always pretty lean, and that's just from like doing body weight training and also just good genetics. So when I was, I want to say maybe 16, my dad and I started doing P90X. So these were my before pictures. Not really much to see here. And so P90X was just one of those things where I liked telling other people that I did it. I liked talking about it, but I wouldn't really do it more than 3 days a week or so. And it was pretty much just like chest and arms. The other stuff like plyometrics, I just never really liked doing because, well, it was legs and it burned and it made me out of breath. I didn't even really like the feeling of being sore. So honestly, I'm surprised that I had some of the muscular definition I had back then, just because I was active, but I didn't really like working out. So then, this is around 2012. At this point, I was maybe 17. That fall, my dad and I decided to try doing P90X again in the garage. So this time I stuck with it a little bit better just because I told myself that I wanted to be more consistent. I still didn't do it all the days of the week, but I did try a lot more than I did when I was 16. So I really liked seeing just more definition, more shape to myself, and as you can see, shoulders were a big focus of mine. The one thing about P90X, they didn't really do too much with chest aside from just body weight stuff, so I always felt like I kind of had a little bit of a lagging chest in comparison, and legs. So right around here is when I dropped out of college. I came home and I was like, okay, I'm going to get certified as a personal trainer. I'm going to learn how to exercise. I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to get a good body and a good physique. And so I started just doing my own kind of training in the garage. And so I loved learning about just what things were, how to do things, how to piece together a workout, what targeted what muscle. I loved it all. And it was nice following a program that I would make rather than a program that someone else had made for me. A big inspiration at the time, I'd never really followed a lot of bodybuilding stuff. I'd never really seen Arnold or anyone like that. So Simeon Panda was a huge inspiration for me through Instagram. So that's who inspired me to keep training in my garage, because he always talked about how his first few years were in his bedroom. This was around maybe winter, I want to say, and around this time I wanted to see if I could stay as consistent as I could for a month, because diet wasn't that great, training was pretty good, but it wasn't all the days that I wanted to during the week. It would be like 4. At this point, I was working at Hollister at the time, and so I really wanted just like that Hollister, like pretty boy kind of model look, as you can see by the dumb looking jeans. Started to work legs a little bit more. I didn't really have any leg equipment, but I tried to do a lot of like lunges, squats, etc., with what I had at the time. The workout attire was, it could be snow boots, it could be gloves, it could be all sorts of stuff depending on the season, because my garage didn't have a heater. So right around here, this is around spring of 2014, this is when I joined the gym for the first time, and just had access to so much more machines and variety compared to what I had in my garage. So I just loved going in there. I loved having a place to dedicate to only working out. When I'd work out in my garage, sometimes I would get distracted, and I would just kind of say like, oh, there's better things I can be doing than being here right now. But when I would actually drive to the gym with the intent of working out, I've just felt like I got so much better of a lift. I could focus so much more. I had my music. I had not freezing temperatures. I had a locker room to take selfies in. So a lot of these are just, I put my phone on the timer at the end of my workout. I stand back and I take the picture. At this time, I think I was loosely tracking macros, but honestly, I would still just kind of eat whatever I wanted with the intent of trying to gain weight. So around here, this is around summer 2014. At this point in time, still working at Hollister, as you can see by the short shorts. But I don't know, I felt like I was finally starting to get more proportion to myself as compared to previous years. My arms had filled out, my shoulders had filled out. I was starting to get a little bit more than just a bird chest. I wound up moving back to Montana to go back to school out there. This time I was living off campus with a roommate that I found on Craigslist. So I was just using the school gym for as long as they would let me, but since I was a part-time student, I didn't have membership. So after they caught on, I wound up just joining this little 24-hour gym that was right across the street. Honestly, I just think back on those times like so fondly. It would be late at night. I would walk across the street. It would be snowing outside, but once I got in there, it was just peace and quiet. Or maybe not peace, but it was just clanging and banging, my own little world in there. And I didn't really know anyone out in Montana. I just wanted to live out there and see what the scenery was like. So honestly, it was an interesting experience kind of having that solitude and not really having any friends or any real distractions. It was just work, school, and the gym. So I really felt like I made a good amount of gains and a good amount of just knowledge here. I started reading the Arnold Encyclopedia. I started kind of learning more than just what the basics were. I felt like I could kind of devote a little bit more time and effort into specific areas and building up my proportions. So I wound up after that semester, it was just a little too cold and a little too lonely. So I moved back home, and from there, I was just enrolled in community college. And I still worked out at home from time to time, but I really just had a love for the gym. And from this point, I was like, okay, I'm going to take routine, like progress pictures in different poses with a nasty bowl cut as I was growing my hair out. So I apologize for these. And at this point in time, I went back to my old gym that was the first one that I signed up at. I apologize for all the mirror selfies through all this. So at this time too, I also noticed, hey, some veins are starting to pop out, some lines are starting to form. So this is when I started feeling like I had not only just a little bit more muscle, but also some density too. I feel like when you first start to build muscle, it's a little bit of shape. My shoulders were always a little bit more big in proportion, but then once the density starts coming, you start to see striations, you start to see graininess, you start to see a little bit more veins. And so honestly, and please don't think I'm trying to brag, I always thought that my proportions and my muscle insertions were pretty similar to Jeff's side. And so he's been a huge inspiration of mine. And I feel like in a couple years, I can hopefully try to be on the level that he is. So this has just been a slow, steady growth. I've been trying to just focus on learning a proper routine for being a natural bodybuilder and just trying to just take my calories slow but be in a surplus at the same time, so I can stay as lean as I can while growing and just working on proportions and kind of just building that total physique. So after this, I wound up leaving that gym back home, and I wound up moving downtown and working at a different gym, and then just going around and hopping around to a couple different places until I found an old school bodybuilding gym. It was at this point too that I met up with two of my friends who are some of my best friends, that just really started to push me and realize my threshold of what I was capable of. Since I mostly trained by myself leading up to this point, it was always just like trying to learn how to do the best workout. But after I met them, I learned how to just push myself to a level that I didn't think I could be at. We wound up going to the Arnold that year, which was really cool, and I got to meet some great people that really inspired me. After going to the Arnold, it really just started to motivate me to see how far I could take my own physique. Seeing so many people that had just really built themselves up from nothing, I kind of wanted to do the same. And at this point, I feel like all my training, my diet, etc., is all coming together. So I feel like from here on out, now that I know what I'm doing and how to perform the way I want to and what I'm capable of, I feel like I can really start dialing it in and really get that full package that I want. Maybe the stage is in the future. I don't really think anytime soon. I feel like I have a lot more building to do. So we shall see. Also this summer, it was a really cool experience to be able to get a professional photo shoot done. I'd never had anything like that before, so being in front of the camera, aside from just taking it myself, was just a big step out of my comfort zone. But I had a great time kind of learning, and I hope to kind of get more into that in the future. I don't know if I have the build of a fitness model or anything like that, but I'd like to dabble in it if I could. So yeah, plans for the future: get a little bit stronger, keep working on recovery and flexibility, keep kind of just trying to build up proportions, and keep everything in check and keep working hard. If you guys have any questions, or if you want to tag me in any of your own transformation posts, I would love to see. Until then, let's just keep working hard and having fun.